Imagine a world where the ground beneath your feet is as solid as a rock, and the sky above you is a dome that holds the stars in place. This world is the one that everyone believed in for thousands of years, from the ancient Egyptians who watched the sun god Ra sail across the sky in his golden boat to the medieval Europeans who mapped the heavens with perfect spheres. But then, a man named Nicolaus Copernicus came along and shook the very foundations of this world, suggesting that the Earth wasn't the center of the universe at all. It was a shocking idea, one that seemed to defy everything we knew. But it was true, and it changed everything. Nicolaus Copernicus was born in 1473 in a small town called Thorn, which is now part of Poland. His father was a successful merchant, but he died when Nicolaus was just 10 years old. This left Nicolaus in the care of his uncle, who was a bishop. Despite the loss, Nicolaus's life was far from ordinary. His uncle made sure he received a top-notch education, sending him to the University of Krakow to study mathematics and painting. Later, Nicolaus went to Italy to study law, medicine, and astronomy. He was a man of many talents, but it was his curiosity about the heavens that would change the world. For centuries, people believed that the Earth was the center of the universe. This idea was called the geocentric model, and it was supported by ancient thinkers like Aristotle and Ptolemy. According to this model, the Earth was a perfect sphere, and the heavens were a series of nested spheres that carried the stars, planets, and the sun around the Earth. It was a beautiful and elegant idea, but it had a problem. It didn't quite explain everything. Astronomers noticed that the planets didn't move in a smooth, perfect circle. Instead, they seemed to speed up, slow down, and even move backward at times. This was called retrograde motion, and it was a big puzzle. To explain these odd movements, astronomers came up with complicated theories involving epicycles, which were tiny circles that the planets moved on top of their larger orbit. It was a messy and unsatisfying solution, but it was the best they had. Nicolaus Copernicus was a man who loved simplicity. He believed that the universe should be elegant and easy to understand. When he looked at the geocentric model, he saw a mess of circles and epicycles that didn't make sense. So he started to think differently. What if the Earth wasn't the center of the universe? What if the sun was? This idea, called the heliocentric model, was revolutionary. In this model, the Earth and all the other planets revolved around the sun. The stars were fixed in the sky, and the Earth's rotation on its axis explained the movement of the stars. Suddenly, the retrograde motion of the planets made sense. They weren't moving backward. They were just moving at different speeds around the sun. When Copernicus first shared his ideas, they were met with skepticism and disbelief. How could the Earth be moving? People felt the ground beneath their feet, and it was solid. The idea that the Earth was spinning around the sun was just too strange to accept. Even Copernicus's friends thought he was crazy, but Copernicus was convinced. He spent years refining his theory and writing a book called De Revolutionibus Orbium Celestium, on the revolutions of the celestial spheres. He didn't publish it until he was on his deathbed, fearing the backlash from the church and the scientific community. Copernicus's heliocentric model was a game changer. It opened the door to new ways of thinking about the universe. Other scientists, like Galileo Galilei and Johannes Kepler, built on his ideas and made even more discoveries. Galileo used a telescope to observe the moons of Jupiter, proving that not everything revolved around the Earth. Kepler discovered that the planets moved in ellipses, not perfect circles, which made the heliocentric model even more accurate. But the impact of Copernicus went beyond astronomy. His ideas challenged the authority of the Church and the traditional view of the world. It was a blow to the idea that humans were the center of the universe, and it forced people to think about their place in the cosmos. This shift in thinking paved the way for the scientific revolution, a period of rapid scientific discovery and innovation that changed the world. Today, we take for granted the idea that the Earth revolves around the sun, but it wasn't always so. Copernicus's heliocentric model was a bold and radical idea that challenged everything people believed to be true. It was a reminder that sometimes the most revolutionary ideas are the ones that seem the most impossible. Copernicus's legacy is not just his scientific discoveries, but his willingness to challenge the status quo. He showed that the world is not always as it seems. and that sometimes the truth is hidden in the mists of paradox. His story is a reminder that curiosity and a willingness to question everything can lead to great discoveries. While Copernicus was challenging the heavens, another man was exploring the earth. James Cook was a British explorer who lived in the 18th century. Unlike Copernicus, Cook's adventures were more tangible and immediate. He sailed to places that had never been seen by European eyes, and his discoveries changed our understanding of the world. James Cook was born in 1728 in a small village in Yorkshire, England. His family was poor, and he started working on ships at a young age. He quickly showed a talent for navigation and leadership, and he joined the British Navy. His early career was marked by his work mapping the coasts of Canada and Newfoundland, which earned him a reputation as a skilled navigator. In 1768, the British Admiralty sent Cook on his first major expedition. He was tasked with sailing to the Pacific to observe the transit of Venus, a rare event where Venus passes between the Earth and the Sun. But his mission didn't stop there. After observing the transit, Cook was ordered to search for a mysterious southern continent that many believed existed. Cook's first voyage took him to Tahiti, where he observed the transit of Venus. He then continued south, exploring the coasts of New Zealand and Australia. His detailed maps of these regions were groundbreaking, and he became the first European to set foot on the east coast of Australia. But his most significant discovery was the realization that there was no southern continent in the region he explored. Cook's second voyage was even more ambitious. He was sent to explore the southern oceans and to find the elusive southern continent. This time he sailed much further south, reaching the icy waters of the Antarctic. He encountered massive icebergs and treacherous conditions, but he was determined to push forward. Despite the dangers, Cook's second voyage was a success. He mapped the coasts of many islands in the South Pacific, including the Easter Islands and Tonga. He also discovered New Caledonia and the South Sandwich Islands. His maps and charts were so accurate that they were used for decades. Cook's third and final voyage was his most famous. The British Admiralty wanted him to find the Northwest Passage, a sea route through the Arctic that would connect the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. Cook set sail in 1776, and his journey took him to the northwest coast of America and through the Bering Sea. Despite his best efforts, Cook could not find the Northwest Passage. The ice was too thick, and the conditions were too dangerous. But his explorations were still valuable. He mapped the coasts of Alaska and the Aleutian Islands, and he was the first European to visit Hawaii. Cook's final days were marked by tragedy. After his explorations in the Arctic, he returned to Hawaii for a rest. The Hawaiians had welcomed him before, but this time tensions were high. The Polynesians had a habit of stealing things from the ships, and one of Cook's boats was stolen. Frustrated, Cook went ashore with an armed guard to recover the boat or take a hostage. The situation quickly turned violent, and Cook was killed by the Hawaiians. James Cook's explorations were groundbreaking. He mapped vast regions of the world that were previously unknown, and his charts and maps were used for generations. But his legacy goes beyond his navigational achievements. Cook was a pioneer in the treatment of scurvy, a disease that plagued sailors on long voyages. Scurvy was a terrible disease that caused bleeding gums, loose teeth, and joint pain. Cook was determined to find a cure. He experimented with different foods, including citrus fruits, sauerkraut, and onions. He also enforced strict hygiene on his ships, regularly inspecting the men's hands and punishing those who were dirty. His methods were so effective that he lost very few men to scurvy on his voyages. The discoveries of Copernicus and Cook were part of a larger movement called the Scientific Revolution. This was a time when people started to question traditional beliefs and look for new ways of understanding the world. The scientific revolution was driven by new instruments like the telescope and microscope, which allowed scientists to see things that were previously invisible. One of the key figures of the scientific revolution was Galileo Galilei. Galileo used a telescope to observe the heavens and made several groundbreaking discoveries. He saw the moons of Jupiter, the phases of Venus, and the mountains and craters on the moon. His observations provided strong evidence for Copernicus's heliocentric model and challenged the authority of the Church. Another important figure was Johannes Kepler, who discovered the laws of planetary motion. Kepler showed that the planets moved in ellipses, not perfect circles, and that their speed varied depending on their distance from the Sun. His laws were a major step forward in our understanding of the solar system. The stories of Copernicus and Cook are stories of curiosity and determination. Both men were willing to challenge the status quo and look for new answers. They showed that sometimes the most important discoveries are the ones that seem the most impossible. Copernicus's heliocentric model and Cook's explorations of the southern oceans were not just scientific achievements. They were also cultural and philosophical breakthroughs. They changed the way people thought about the world and their place in it. They showed that the universe is vast and complex, and that there is always more to discover. Today, we continue to explore the universe and the Earth in new ways. We send probes to other planets, study the deep sea, and map the human genome. Each new discovery builds on the work of those who came before us, and each one opens up new questions and possibilities. The legacy of Copernicus and Cook is a reminder that the journey of exploration is never complete. There is always more to learn, more to discover, and more to understand. The universe is a vast and mysterious place, and our curiosity is the key to unlocking its secrets. In the end, the stories of Copernicus and Cook are stories of human ingenuity and perseverance. They remind us that the world is full of wonders, and that the only limit to our discoveries is our own imagination. Whether we are looking at the stars or sailing the oceans, the spirit of exploration is what drives us forward. So, the next time you look up at the night sky or read about a new scientific discovery, remember the men who moved the earth and charted the unknown. Their legacy is a reminder that the journey of discovery is one of the greatest adventures of all.